I'm Simon McGrath and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Accor in the Pacific. Accor started targeting the China market 3 to 5 years ago, and like everyone, we dabbled in it and we thought we had the right relationships and so on, but it very quickly became apparent that we needed to do more than just develop relationships with the inbound wholesalers. We really needed to develop a whole level of product and service that was going to stand for a long period of time, and rather than being annual negotiations. It started, first phase was developing some language skills and some signage and so on. And as we dealt with that, we realised it did need to go a little bit deeper than that. So we developed the China Optimum Service Standards. And importantly about those service standards, it covered not just the 1 or 2 key points, but it covered 10 touch points in the hotel. What was most important about that was that it was accredited by an external party, and those are generally the Chinese Australian business councils in Australia, so that it has authenticity and that it's audited annually. It is updated on a regular basis, and it really does stand for something quite separate to just welcoming the Chinese market in an ad hoc way. Look, it's been good. I mean, it's not something that we implemented and expected a 3-month return on. We understood that it was going to be a 5 to 10 year play. However, pleasingly, in the first 2 or 3 years, we've seen substantial market share growth in the Chinese market above and beyond the normal market trends in Australia. What's critical is that we gain a reputation for genuinely welcoming and, most importantly, providing safety and security for our Chinese visitors to Australia. We have a number of hotels branded in China ourselves, so that outbound-inbound flow from both countries is pretty important in that relationship, and certainly does help that. But certainly the China Optimum Service Standards gives a level of authenticity that should last longer than a couple of years. We've got a range of executive resources that are positioned towards the Chinese market. Our whole executive team has a China-facing strategy in various parts of the business, whether it's distribution, marketing, sales, and in fact HR and recruitment. And at hotel level, a fair portion of a general manager's time is taken up in thinking about the Chinese market and applying those strategies and executing them in a fairly clever way. Every market is about understanding the market, every market is about respecting the market, and every market is about then responding to the needs of that market. So in some ways it's not different to any other market. There is some peculiarities to it, and one is the length of time it's going to take you to develop that. It's not going to be immediate. You need to be deeply involved in it. And some other markets, Western markets, you can turn on a little bit quicker. So perhaps the East and Western relationship needs to take a little bit longer to generate that level of comfort and safety. And frankly, the other difference in the Chinese market, it's the most competitive market in the world. If we're saying in Australia we're interested in the Chinese market and it's important to our destination, and New South Wales wants to tackle it at the forefront of its strategy, every other tourism destination in the world is currently saying exactly the same information. So we actually have to do something better and bigger and bolder than the rest of the world, and that's challenging, and it's not going to take a sort of run-of-the-mill approach at the Chinese market to achieve what we want to achieve. China plays a big part in our plans for the future, but it is a balanced plan. It is one segment of 10 segments that we aim to capture, and I think that's also very important. You need to keep a balance to it, but it certainly is at the forefront. We're developing hotels in China currently at a rate of 2 or 3 a week. It's very important to our growth, but here in Australia it's again critical to the future, and we expect it to grow at the same pace that it has been growing recently, and that will continue for some time. So logically, if it's going to take a fair portion of the inbound market to Australia, we want to make sure we've got a fair and reasonable piece of that market. One piece of advice I'd give is go there. I think it's very hard to theorise about what the Chinese market wants and so on, and often embarrassingly we go to China and we've been talking about our China Optimum Service Standards. We think we're doing the right thing, but then when we go to China and we understand a little bit more and learn a little bit more, I think we reshape our strategy. So I think the respect of actually going to the Chinese market, understanding it, talking to people about it, I think is probably the best advice I can give. And then I'm sure every business in Australia and tourism entity will develop their own strategy and be unique about it, do what comes naturally to you. Don't do what others expect you to do. But if you've got a level of respect for that market, then I think you'll develop a unique strategy for yourself that's relevant. Now, the hope is that cohesively comes together as an industry, and that as an industry we stand up and tell the Chinese market that we care, we're interested, and we want you to really enjoy the safety and comfort of Australia and the destination that it is. The initiatives we prepared for our properties to make sure that we're ready for the China market follow a whole range of initiatives. It's not one or two, it's a range that touches every touch point in the hotel and ensures that we're delivering a level of service to the Chinese market that is genuine. The Accor Optimum Service Standards for the Chinese market are tailored towards the Chinese traveller to ensure that they firstly feel welcome, secondly they have a level of security and feel comfortable within the Australian market. It's not to give them a Chinese experience, it's to give them the comfort of some treats from home and some respect and some safety, but allow them then to venture out into the Australian market and really enjoy Australia for what it is and Sydney for what it is, which is undoubtedly one of the best cities in the world. The China market for Accor has developed quite a rapid pace over the last 3 to 5 years. Initially, we put our toe in the water and we were probably doing what everyone else was doing and in terms of research and trying to understand it. But certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, through the genuine approach to service and the relationships that are forged from that level of service and commitment, we've seen a good growth in our market share. And most importantly, a deep sense of relationship with the partners that we hope to continue to develop that market share with over the next 5, 10, 15 years. Working in the China market in some ways is different, in other ways it's not. It's not different in terms of the respect and the knowledge and the strategies that you need to form. You need to take time to do that. You need to actually have a respect for the particular market that you're looking at. What's different about the Chinese market is possibly it takes a little bit longer to develop those relationships, and what may appear as obvious isn't as obvious at times, and that's where take time and put a lot of effort in, and the rewards will come. But you do need to be consistent with your view. You do need to be consistent with your relationships, and have a high degree of patience to deliver an outcome. But I think most importantly, you've got to be generous with your time and your commitment to service before you expect to reap benefits.